for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
So I have several questions, and as I've been around this work for a couple days, I just have gotten more questions. So I want to start with what inspires you, or what piqued your curiosity to shoot this particular subject matter?
So my favorite type of photography that I like to do and scenes that I like to photograph is along wild, real rugged nature. So I really try to capture like the serenity and the intensity of nature. My photography kind of grew out of my experiences with backpacking, and as a way to kind of capture some of the things in nature that we don't see in a day-to-day basis. So that's kind of where my photography started, and it's kind of grown from there. So a lot of the scenes that you see here are some more natural, just rugged scenes that we don't get to see. Thankfully, I've been fortunate enough that I've been able to experience some really awesome places, and hopefully am doing justice in sharing those locations.
How do you know when the right moment to shoot is, or are you looking for that? How much is scoped out, like you mentioned in a previous conversation, and how much is spontaneous?
Very little of it's actually very spontaneous. Now, occasionally it does happen, but most of my images are very planned. So for me to find a scene, typically what I will do is I will go to a location, maybe even without my camera, look around, find a scene that I really like. That way, when I have the conditions that I think will photograph well, so say we have really good clouds, really nice light, I know exactly where I want to go to get the scene that I'm after, to be able to capture the scene that I'm after. A good example is the one behind us here. This is an image that I took up on the North Shore of Lake Superior, but it took me 3 years to actually get. So the reason for that is you can actually only get the night sky in that position with the stars like that in the month of April, because I specifically wanted it over top of that island. That's a scene that I had in my mind, so I knew exactly where I needed to be there, but I had to wait on the conditions to happen. The challenge in the month of April on Lake Superior is you have to have a clear sky with no clouds, and then you can't have a moon. That's also 6 hours from my home. But so that's a good example of this image that I had in my mind. I knew exactly where I wanted to go, but I had to wait for those conditions to happen, to occur, so I can photograph it.
And how often is it successful? Like, what's the fail rate of, like, is there some part of you, like, it's like, oh, what if this doesn't?
Oh, that definitely happens a lot. Usually, the nice thing is like I know exactly where I'm going to go, but there could be a situation where I might go back to the same location 3 or 4 times to get the scene, because when I got there, the light, or when I was going to the location, I thought the light was going to be really good. All of a sudden, the clouds disappear, or it just becomes completely overcast, or conditions don't occur the way that they were forecasted. So there are failed attempts. I try to make the most of a situation where I am out in the field though, so I might photograph something else. But there are definitely times where you had a shot in your mind and you want to be able to go capture it, and it doesn't turn out, so you just try again.
Yeah, I wonder how often it's better than what you thought.
That has definitely happened as well.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's not in the scene right now, but I have a shot. It's a very iconic shot that you'll see most North American landscape photographers capture. That's a photo of Mesa Arch down in outside of Moab, and beautiful scene, but it's an extremely popular location.
I've been to Moab many times.
You've been to Moab, so
yes,
you know the spot.
I think it's even more popular now than it
was. There's horror stories where photographers will be lined up in front of the stage for sunrise. It's a beautiful location. Now I went to go photograph that particular location February of last year. And when I got to that location, there was a bunch of snow on the ground, and they had a freak snowstorm. They had like 2 feet of snowfall the week before I got there, and it just had not melted. And initially I was very disappointed because I wanted the classic shot just to have in my portfolio of your normal, just the red sand on the ground with the scene. But actually, after I captured the image, got it processed and looked at it, it looks awesome, which is with the snow, and it's a little more unique because you don't see as many photographs of Mesa Arch in the snow.
It doesn't snow there that often. Yeah.
And I definitely have other photographers that are jealous of me for it.
Let's go back a little bit. How, your first moments with the camera, what, were you a child that was really interested? When did this happen?
Some very amateur beginner work as a child, but I did not actually get real serious into photography until about probably 8 to 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I started more as a videographer. Like I said, I'm really into backpacking. Initially, it was all videography and photography to document my backpacking adventures. Quickly realized that I don't like editing video, and actually liked stills more, and my photography just kind of grew out of that. Started with a point and shoot, then got to a just kind of a cheaper Micro Four Thirds digital camera. We change out the lens, and I spent a lot of time on that system, making a lot of mistakes, but really kind of learning what type of photography I wanted to do on a relatively inexpensive system before I eventually was able to work on my current camera setups that is very tailored to the type of photography that I want to shoot.
Which is?
So I shoot on Sony digital cameras on a full frame system, but it's more, it's on a tripod. It's a system that does really well with low lights, or low lighting situations, because I shoot a lot of sunrise, sunset. So I know the type of gear that suits my needs. So if that makes sense.
So what is your like post-production?
Not as much.
There? Because it's such a, you're capturing nature. It's so beautiful, but there's such an art form to also the editing process.
Yes.
Depending on, like every photographer has a different.
You're very right
opinion
there. So,
this.
and honestly, it's like, I feel like it's whatever photography you are, it doesn't matter. Like, if you like to do a lot of editing post-process, that's great. If you don't, no problem either. If you want to shoot film, I think it's the nice thing about us as photographers, we can go photograph the way that we want to photograph. It's really it's like our creative vision, and it's up to us how to create that, whether that's a lot of post work or whether it's no post work. So my personal goals and philosophy with photography is I am trying to capture a moment or a scene, and I'm trying to capture that as best as I possibly can. So I would use different lens techniques, different camera techniques in the field to be able to make the image look as the way that I want it, or as best as I possibly can. There is always going to be some type of post-production work with digital photography. Since I'm shooting raw, I'm coming back and I have to recreate the colors and the contrast, because you don't get that in the digital file. But my ultimate philosophy is I'm trying to create the feeling that I had in that moment when I took the image. And I try to do as much work in the field as possible. I already spend way too much time in front of a computer, so the less time I have to sit processing the image, the better. So typically I have a pretty quick editing process.
How does your high resolution, high tech camera, how does that help you achieve that picture perfect natural image?
So I think where it helps me the most is actually it's not necessarily the high resolution, although that definitely helps. But what's more important for me is I need to be able to capture a very good dynamic. That's the difference between like the darkest and the brightest spot within the scene. Camera sees much differently than what our eyes see. Our eyes and our brain does a really good job of adjusting for brightness and darkness. The camera does not, so we have to compensate that typically in our post work, even if we use film. So what helps with the camera systems that I photograph on though is like I don't have to do a process called bracketing where I have to do a photo of just for the highlights, just for the mid-tones, and then for the dark or the shadows in the scene. Typically, I can get by with one image, which is the way that I like to edit and photograph. I don't like bracketing personally just because I hate the editing process of it, but I can do it. But most of the images that you see actually in this display are a single shot.
Do you have a favorite?
Do I have a
image
favorite?
in this show?
It very
or
much
like because of the image or the experience of getting it, or both?
That's a difficult question to answer because it kind of changes. It's a question I get quite often when I'm on the street doing an art show. The one behind me actually was one of my favorite images from last year, but a big reason for that is because it took 3 years to get done. It was an image that I had in my mind. I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew the spot I was going to go. I wanted to go to.
Game.
It was the long game, and then just to see how well it turned out, I'm extremely happy with that image. But there's several favorites in here. The nice thing with being able to go out and photograph the world is like I can see new things, have new experiences, and so your favorite kind of changes.
Yeah. Is there a certain location that you find yourself repeatedly going to, or like that you're drawn to, that you find yourself?
Yeah. So I photograph a lot up in Minnesota along the North Shore. So that's the area north of Duluth, from Duluth clear up to the Canadian border along the Lake Shore and Lake Superior. So I have several images in this show of that location. I typically will make one to three trips up there each year for photos. It's a beautiful area, but it's also kind of where I started my photography. So it's where I did a lot of backpacking up in that area. A lot of my original images came from that area. So it's a spot that I still love to go up there and photograph. Like I said, I like to photograph a lot of rugged locations, and it's also one of the more easily accessible rugged locations without having to drive 12 hours out west.
Obviously, nature inspires you. That's your subject matter, but are there particular artists, whether they're photographers, painters, are there other artists that inspire you or that you get inspiration from or that you...
So I have a couple different photographers that I really admire. Obviously, Ansel Adams is very influential on my work. His National Park series, just, yeah. So I would say that's probably, growing up, seeing his work has probably had the most unconscious influence on my work. Current photographers out there, I've got several photographers that I absolutely really enjoy. A local photographer that's a big inspiration for me is a photographer actually out in Fairfield, Redeem. He does firefly photography. Redeem, I can't remember his last name off the top of my head. He's an amazing photographer, but he does fireflies and just capturing that out in nature in Smoky Mountains and different locations throughout Iowa, throughout the world now. It's beautiful.
Are there any locations that you're dying to photograph? If money was no object and time was no object, where would you go? What is maybe your top 3 locations you'd love to shoot?
Oh boy. So if I had the world, actually I really enjoy photographing the United States. I really love the areas of the Rocky Mountains. I'd love to spend some more time in those locations. I actually will be going out to Colorado in a few weeks for some winter photography. The southwest of the United States is a gorgeous area. I want to get up to Bryce Canyon, Zion, some of those just really iconic locations. But actually going to those iconic locations, I don't want to shooting the icons as much as find some unique spot that maybe hasn't been photographed as much, and so I can just have my own creative style.
So we talked off camera a lot about your art fair life. So you said that you go to 40 art fairs a year?
About 35 to 40 is kind of where I will be at this year. So it will be about every weekend, starting in March of this year. So it's a really interesting way to make a living.
Yeah.
It's kind of a roller coaster ride, but one of the things that I really like about doing art shows, especially art shows on the street, is the ability or the opportunity to be able to engage with clients. I love being able to talk about my work. I would love being able to tell the story behind each one of my pieces. So if someone's coming into my art booth looking at an image, I get to have that one-on-one conversation. It's one thing that I really enjoy doing.
That's
I do that every weekend.
Yeah, it's so fun. I've obviously tried to get Josh to apply for Snake Valley Art Fair, but he is busy at another fair. So maybe one of these years, but that is what is so special about an art fair, is because you get to engage with the artists and see them and talk to them, and that's an experience you don't always get when you stroll through a gallery or art shop.
They're great community events. It's really awesome to be able to walk into a community, set up, and you see this big social hour happen. You see friends walking in, talking about friends. They're looking at art together. It's an amazing experience.
Start getting involved in showing your work.
So I had a friend of mine. She was actually an art teacher near where I live. She highly recommended that I try a little art show, which reluctantly I did because I didn't think my work was good enough. And it was good enough for me to get into the show. And it was an amazing experience actually getting into the show, because I had not experienced this prior to this event, where I had multiple people coming in for 2 different days, just loving my work, and then you get this look of almost admiration. People oh, I wish I could do that. And coming in as a really a newer photographer and a brand new artist who's extremely self-conscious about your work, it was very affirming.
Yeah.
Affirming enough that I've continued to do this to this day. But if I was to say something to anyone that was interested in trying to get their work out and show it, is to take that risk and do it. Because I know myself and talking with multiple other artists, it's like we are our own worst critics. We never think our work is good enough. Put it out there, see how it's received. You might be really surprised.
That is so true. And I'm not an artist. I'm around artists all the time. And I cannot tell you how many times that has happened where, I meet someone who I'm just so drawn to and so inspired by. And they're phenomenal artists. And yeah, they don't think anyone would be interested in seeing their work, or they're hypercritical. And they're like, well, why would anyone be interested in that? It's like, I'm telling you right now, I want to see your work. But it is scary because your work is very personal. It is you. And, it's almost like maybe the audacity that, someone might like what's me so much or something like that. I don't know. But, and then once they do it and they see how drawn people are to it and they see the reaction people have to it, yeah, it is affirming. And then it kind of, then they're hooked.
Yep.
And aren't we all fortunate to get them to continue to do that? Because, yeah, it happens all the time. It's like, what, me show my work? It's like, yes, you show your work.
And talking with a lot of artists, and myself included, is like, I want my work to be out there in the world. I want other people to be able to enjoy it, have it. I don't want to just have it just sitting in my studio and I'm the only one that sees it. I'm really kind of creating it for everyone, not just myself. Obviously, I get a lot of enjoyment creating it myself, but ultimately, I want it to be out there and be viewed. Love it to have it hanging in people's homes, and it's just an amazing feeling when you have someone that approaches you. They love the piece enough they're willing to support you, buy that piece, hang it in their home, hang it in their office. It's an amazing feeling.
So do you ever get creative blocks? Like you literally have the world is your oyster, like it's always there, but do you ever feel like a creative block or not inspired? Or do you ever feel like you have to like break through that wall? There
are times where it can be challenging. I tend to work very hard with my work, so it's even if I'm not feeling creative, I try to make it a point to be out there or do something creative, even though if I'm not in the mood. Definitely happens for me. The other piece that I'll do, and we talked about a little bit of this before the interviews, is like since I'm doing this professionally, it's like I'm running a business as well. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm still out there selling my artwork, so there is all the business aspects behind it as well. I don't just get to create 100% of the time. As great as that would be, I do still have to do my taxes. I do have to be able to track what images I have taken, who's buying what images, and make sure people are getting their images.
There's such a business side to being an artist, and it could not be more starkly different than the creative part.
Yes. Now the great thing about that is it's such, depending on like the mood that I'm in, is maybe I need a break from the creative side. I need to work on the more technical aspects side. But then it's usually by the time I've done a couple days of like business work, I'm ready to be out in the field. I'm ready to go photograph. So
I like that perspective that it kind of balances the two, because like anything, you can love something so much, but sometimes you need to like use
you need space from
your
something.
Brain and like do something different.
And also allows you to reapproach something with a more fresh perspective.
It's I was talking to an artist recently, and we were talking about, when you hit that creative block, when do you know when to, sometimes those blocks are good and they make you just keep pushing through, and then, or how do you know the difference between keep pushing through it or no, stop and totally go down a different road in the creative process, or, like this idea I have to shoot this like, I can keep going at it, and maybe I'll get there, or do I need to like redirect and
I honestly, I'm probably pretty guilty about continuing to beat my head against the wall sometimes, but usually if I'm trying a certain technique or trying a certain image and it's just not working out, that's going to become pretty apparent, and then it's just time to try something else for a day or a week or something. So like one of the challenges I'm running into right now is like we're in Iowa in the beginning of February. I haven't had any good winter photography all year long. I'd love to get some snow shots, but we have not had any snow. So like,
we don't want any snow.
Well, the photographer wants snow. I'm sorry, everybody else. But that means I have to change my shooting style. I've done a lot more abstract work, a lot more black and white work that plays more to the kind of what the environment's currently providing. It's not what I just want to shoot, but I'm still out there trying something different. And it also expands my skill set as a photographer and as an artist, and I can take those skills and then kind of incorporate those into the work that I really like to do.
Do you ever shoot anything not?
I will. It's not something stuff I normally show. So I do some black and white work. I do some abstract stuff. I'll actually. This has a very technical name for it. I'm not going to say it because I'll butcher it. One of the things that I really like to do as a personal project is that I will go out into nature. I'll look at the barks of trees. I'll look at rocks and such. I'll try to find like certain faces or different like shapes that resemble a face of a dog, face of a person. So there is an actual name of it. It's really neat. It plays more into the editing style as well because you can do some dodging in order to bring out those aspects. But it's not something that I normally show. What I'd really like to share is what you're getting to see tonight.
Well, we're so lucky to have this beautiful, beautiful exhibition right here in Burlington. Everything is for sale, and we are having our opening tonight, but the work will be on exhibits throughout the entire month. Make sure to also sign up for Art of the Cocktail next door at the Nightcap, which will be happening on the 13th, where you can purchase a postcard of Josh's work, and they will be designing a cocktail inspired by your work over there next week. So, but please stop into the gallery and check out this beautiful work. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.